Okay.
And welcome back to the Ultra Running Guys. You got Jeremy Reynolds and Jeff Winchester of the Ultra Running Guys, and we're excited to be back with episode 2 of our race spotlight series. So the reason that we're here is to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey. But part of that journey is knowing where it may take you. So the goal of this series is really to spotlight different races and help you understand if it's right for your next step. And who better to help us understand about the races than the race directors themselves?
Absolutely. I am excited also. This week, though, we are going to be taking a look at the Tunnel Hill 100, which is a 100-mile race located in southern Illinois. And the claim to fame for Tunnel Hill is that it is a fast 100. And it has a little over 600 feet of elevation over the entire 100 miles. And when, I guess I keep wanting to say it's fast because that's like the most important thing to me because it's flat. The race takes place, though, in November, eliminating the risk of a hot day, and is one of the first races in the lottery for Western states historically. And so what I mean by that, and the reason that's important is because if you're looking to run this race and want to qualify for 2025, then you would want to run it this year in November. The course is crushed limestone and uses the Tunnel Hill State Trail with a highlight of running through a 600-foot tunnel.
It's a long tunnel.
It's a long tunnel. It used to be 800 feet, but 200 feet fell down. Beside the point, and over wooden trestles along the way. So with that, we would like to welcome to the show Steve Durbin, race director for the Tunnel Hill 100. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, guys.
Well, look, we're really excited about this, and Tunnel Hill is something I've heard people talk about, for a couple years. I know there's been some really big highlights, and we won't steal your thunder on that. But why don't you just give us a quick, how long has the race been around, and why do you think people keep coming back to the Tunnel Hill 100? My gosh.
The race has been around since 2014. And I don't know if you're interested in how we got started and why we chose Tunnel Hill in the first place.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, yeah, I've done some fun races before, the Barkley Marathons with my friend Laz, and we do other races together. Well, I have a race, Land Between the Lakes, in Western Kentucky, and a guy who ran it, Jason Claunch, said, hey, we've got a banquet coming up, River to River Runners Club, which was across the river from me. And I lived in Paducah, Kentucky, Western Kentucky. So Vienna, Illinois, where the site of the Tunnel Hill race is about 30 miles from there. So Jason ran LBL and said, our banquet's coming up. Would you want to come and be our speaker this year and talk about some of the crazy things you've done? Because back then, wasn't that many people running hundreds. And so I said, sure. So first thing I did was call my buddy Laz and said, you want to go with me? And he said, sure. So we went, we talked about it. And afterwards, I talked to Jason about, hey, what about putting a 100-miler on the Tunnel Hill State Trail? And he said, that sounds like a great idea to me. So we worked out the details, and we had our first race in November of 2014. So do you want to know what happened that year?
Yes. And then I know there's a couple of big highlights. So do that, and then give us the highlights kind of that have happened between then and now, because we know it's a unique race.
Okay. The first year, it was 75 degrees on Thursday. Well, then the polar vortex came in, and it was 18 on race morning.
Whew, that's a little cold.
Yeah, the state park said, okay, we got to turn the water off. You can't have water. So we had to figure out a way to get water to the main aid stations. My good friend Tracy Falbo ran that year. And she said she ran 14:45, and which was an American record for an FKT at the time. So that put us on the map, got people's attention, because everybody knew Tracy. She was the world record holder for 48 hours. Had set it that summer. So that kind of got us started. And then 2015, Mike Bialik came down from Minnetonka, Minnesota, and ran 12:52. which was the fastest time in North America, about 45 minutes. So the whole philosophy at Tunnel Hill and the reason it was set up the way it is we wanted it to be a fast course, and you can equate fast with easy if you want. It's still 100 miles.
Right.
But at the time, everything was Barkley-esque. It's Barkley-esque. It's a tough mutter. This is the hardest race in the world. I wanted to go something different. Let's make it something runnable for everybody. You know, if you've never, because back then there were more marathons and such than there were hundreds, a lot more, obviously. And people, as they get older, they can't run as fast, right? So they're looking to go farther, right? So everybody was kind of looking for a 50 mile or 100, but it's pretty daunting if you think about it. So we say, okay, this is the race for you. And our slogan's always been, how fast do you want to run? So if you're an elite, do you want to try to set a world record? Do you want to set a national age group record? But you don't have to be elite. You can be anybody and go for it. We have, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'd be willing to bet that half the people that come to our race at Tunnel Hill set their personal best.
I think, so I'm going to jump in. So how fast do you want to run? I think it's an amazing slogan, both for, hey, if you're working on your fitness and you're looking for that PR and you're going out to see what you can do, it sounds like it's a great course for that. It also sounds so approachable for somebody who's eyeing their first 100, you know, is realizing, okay, I don't want all the elevation in my first one. I want something that's more runnable. You know, it sounds like Tunnel Hill kind of spans that from, we say speed, right? But a lot of people, it's not going to be, to your point, fast, but it's how fast do you want to run? I think that's great.
Yeah, I think it also allows a lot of people the first opportunity to go sub 24, which is a very popular thing in hundreds as well. It's definitely designed for that as well. What do you think is your favorite thing personally about the race?
My favorite thing is obviously the runners and working with the community. We picked Vienna, Illinois. It's a very small community and one that's kind of been passed over the years. Nearby towns, things have gone there instead of to Vienna. But and by the way, it looks like Vienna.
I was going to say, I'm glad you said it out loud because I would have said
Vienna. Yeah. So if you say Vienna, then they're going to know
you're out. Do you know?
You're not a local.
That's why in the intro I said Southern Illinois because I wasn't sure of the pronunciation of it.
Just like Cairo, Illinois, instead of Cairo. So it's called Little Egypt, that whole area over there. But it's cool. The people were so helpful. So I really like working with the community there. When I first talked to them about perhaps putting on a 100-mile race, they assumed it was a bicycle because, you know, their Tunnel Hill Trail has been featured on the national publication for Rails to Trails. And so a lot of bikers come and ride it. It's actually about 57 miles long, but we only use the bottom 25 because I think that's the prettiest part. It's got these awesome rock formations. We have people, they come to rock climb there. These long trestles, the cool tunnel, wetlands to the south. It's just a very pretty course. So I like that too. But dealing with the community, the volunteers, my co-director, I need to get his name in here because he's awesome. Jason Claunch, the same guy who invited me to speak at River to River. He takes care of all the volunteers and the aid station. So he's invaluable. My wife, Terry, is my medical person. She goes out of her way to make sure everybody, all the runners are happy, and we do whatever we can to make their race special.
I love it. So we've talked about, hey, it's a great race for your first one, potentially. It's a great race to try to go set your PR. It's pretty. It's rails to trails, which means you shouldn't get lost, right?
Not a lot of turns.
Not a lot of turns. But because I know that there's always this, right? What do you think that runners underestimate about this race, or is there anything that runners should be aware of when they're showing up on race day?
Sure. Our race is on the first weekend when we go back on standard time. So some people, it's almost a 2-hour difference. If you're coming from the east and now you're in central time, it's dark sooner. They're not adjusted to that quite yet. They don't prepare properly, and that catches them by surprise. So it's touted as easy, but it's still 100 miles. Right. And so you have to be ready to go. And I think that's what kind of surprises them is, sometimes it's colder. I mean, it gets dark sooner, and so it's colder sooner. They don't have the proper things in their drop bags or whatever.
So if you're listening and you're thinking about Tunnel Hill, extra batteries for that headlamp, because you may need them, as well as plan for potential temperature swings, right? That time of year. Never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. And, we have people come and say, oh, I can't run. It's too flat. And then we have other ones talk about the big hill going to the tunnel. It's too hilly. So it's all in what it's all in what you train for. I think you're smarter to train for a little flatter, and it's a double out and back. It's just a let her rip kind of course. You don't run around circles around a lot of people. You just run fast and as fast as you want to go. A lot of people go out too fast, so that's something to be aware of as well. I don't know how many times I've been told that. So one thing they have to be that puts most people out of the race is their car is right there at 50 miles. And we like to encourage people to go for it. So go for 100 miles. A lot of it's not as much as used to be, but when we first started racing, putting on races 20 years ago, and even with Tunnel Hill 10 years ago, if you signed up for 100 and you didn't finish 100, they didn't care. They didn't care if you ran 75 miles or 80, you got a DNF. Mm-hmm. We don't do that. We have your time at 50 miles. So we're going to give you, if you run at least 50 miles, we're going to give you your 50-mile official time, and I'm going to give you your 50-mile buckle because you've earned it. And then a lot of people, so that frees people up to, okay, let me try it. Right. Because a lot of people make it. Lots of people, they come in. You asked me what my favorite thing was, to see runners coming in at the finish, to see their kids waiting for them, see them run across the line together, their spouse who's been there for 3 hours waiting for them to come in, and checking all the updates and all that kind of stuff. And it's so emotional. I mean, it still gets to us, and we've been doing it for years. It's just a happy time. The people who persist. Now, I'm not saying if you're hurt that you should go on. If you're truly hurt, don't go on. If you're uncomfortable, so what? Things are uncomfortable that are worth doing. I mean, the reward is so great. And so we try to encourage people to go on. Take a rest for a while if you need to. We've got these great warming tents at the 50-mile mark where you can go and sit down for a while. We have tremendous aid stations every 5 miles or so.
Let me interrupt for just a second. I'm just curious, something you mentioned about the option to drop down from the 100 to the 50. Do you ever have any runners go up that sign up for your 50-miler and opt to?
Never, but yeah, it's happened. And we encourage that too.
That's cool.
If they want to move up right then, they finish 50 and say, hey, can I keep going? Sure, you can. We just make the adjustment and we let them move up.
I don't think I ever would do that.
there haven't been many, but typically there's so many drop downs that it pushes Tunnel Hill 50 into one of the top 10 biggest races of the year on ultra running list because of so many drop downs. But it's okay. I think it's great. I think people should go for it.
Well, yeah. And again, the reason that we're here is to help people take the next step, right? And the great thing about the drop down option, because there's going to be the two sides. There's going to be, death before DNF. Like I came here for 100, I'm not leaving until I cross the finish line or I'm dead. And then there's going to be the other side that goes, I don't know if I want to sign up for 100 because I'm not sure I can do it, right? You give people the option, to your point, to say, well, let me try. Worst case, I get back to the start and I decide, that gets them to show up on race day. And I'm sure because of that, you've had more people finish 100 that weren't sure if they could just because they got to the starting line. The second part of that, though, is if you are showing up determined, to listen to those words, if you're showing up determined to run 100 miles, get out of 50 miles.
Oh, yeah, because that sounds like it'd be the hardest place to get out of because of that.
So you have to mentally prepare yourself. The car is there, the stop is there, turn around and leave. That is it. And we haven't given the RD the credit that he deserves. And so when he says, hey, it's going to be uncomfortable, Steve's run 6 Barkley marathons. You've got just a lineup. So this is coming from a guy with experience. So he's not just saying that flippantly. He's used to being uncomfortable. Just want to
I like it. I think it's great. Give me inclement weather if you can.
Right.
So other than the warming tents that you guys have available at the aid station at mile 50, what other things can runners expect at your aid stations?
We have a variety of stuff, just the usual that what you would find at PB&J, bananas, oranges, and that kind of stuff. But we also mix it up and bring like egg sandwiches, and we have bacon and eggs at Tunnel Hill Aid Station, and of course grilled cheese sandwiches, hamburgers, hot dogs. We give each aid station has its own captain, and Jason again is in charge of those, and they kind of make them their own. So each one tweaks it a little bit, and they're all runners themselves, so they know what they like when they're doing ultras, and they know how to handle runners coming in, encourage them to move on, get them what they need. We're gonna help you. We want you to succeed. By you succeeding, we succeed. And that's what we're happy to see. So you're going to come to the aid stations. They're about every 5 miles apart. Since it's a double out and back, you're going to see the same one. Like when you get down, you go through 5, then 10. And at 10, you're going to run a 2.5 mile out and back to the wetland center. Now you're going to be at that aid station you were the second aid station. Then you come back, come through Tunnel Hill, Vienna Park, and that's the start finish. You're about 26.5 miles there. Then you have the next one is about 3 miles. And then there's a long span before the tunnel, and we're not allowed to set up aid stations everywhere. We have to find crossroads. So before the longest trestle, the state takes gallon jugs of water for us and puts it there. So you will have access to water. Then you'll go run through the tunnel, and then you'll have that aid station, and then you'll turn around, come back through that aid station, and come on back into to Tunnel Hill. To Vienna Park.
Do runners need to be prepared? Do you provide cups? Do you prefer if they bring their own cups? Is there things they need to be prepared with that way?
We almost everybody brings their own fluid bottles. We do have some cups in case people forget. Our main sponsor is Sword. I'm not part of those guys, but they've been with me since for 10 years. So they're awesome, and the product is awesome. I can get a word in there because I've seen it change races, save races. When Mike Bialik won in 2015, he was ready to stop at 75 miles. He had a huge lead. He tried it for the first time, wound up, and then within a few miles was running again. And, he ran 12:52 that year. So we have it there, and, we have coffee and things at night that you'll need, cocoa or whatever. But each station has like little, warming places where they can get going. But again, we want you to keep moving, moving. And don't listen to the people you're running with when they start talking about quitting. That's another thing that causes you to quit. There's comfort in quitting with a group. Well, those three, they were all quitting. We were all quitting, so we stopped. And then you find out the next day, hell, not very many quit. So I ran into that at Barkley all the time. So as soon as they would start talking about quitting, I would get the heck away from those guys because it's too easy to talk yourself into quitting.
It's funny. The second you said, "Oh, there's warming places," I was like, "Ooh,
Right.
I would need to stay away from that." So if you're listening, sure, it sounds good to know that, but I really I like what you're saying of keep moving.
Go get some soup and coffee and whatever it takes to keep you going and going. Those guys are going to be pushing you out of there too. So
That's good. So
yeah.
what about the crew itself? If a runner is bringing their own crew, what considerations do they need to have?
We don't allow them at the very first one, which is 5 miles in. It's too congested, and it's not the greatest place for crew anyway. It's a narrow little road, and there's not much parking at all. So the first 5 miles, no. But after that, you'd be surprised how spread out 600 people could get, but they do. And the next one is a much bigger station, and so there's plenty of parking there. So they're easy to find. They run along. We give everybody a booklet that has, all about the race and the entrance and kind of history and winners and of course a map and directions on how to get to all that. I mean, crew are vital, and it's comforting for the people who have the crew, and we do all we can to support them.
So it sounds like pretty crew friendly. If I understood right, essentially the first time you're going to see your crew is at approximately the 10-mile aid station, but then after that, it sounds like it's pretty accessible.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Fantastic. That's really good to know. I take my family, and I know that makes a big deal to my wife to be able to step in and see. So
I'm going to ask you a question that is based off some research I was doing. You have seen a lot of incredible performances out there. What is one that has stood out to you above and beyond?
Well, how are you going to top a world record? So 2017, I get an email from Connor Holt, and it's about, I don't know, 2 weeks before the race. And it says, do you accept elite runners? And I sent a resume with it, and it was for Camille Herron. And I hate saying that I didn't know who Camille was at the time, but I do race because it's fun.
Yeah.
And I never got real involved with who had the world records or who had anything. So I looked at that and I go, oh, wow, she's won a lot of marathons and set the Guinness Book of World Records for fastest time in a superhero costume for a marathon. And oh, look at this, she won Comrades this year. So that's awesome. And so she's on Facebook, and I was born with wings, and I'm going to set the world record at Tunnel Hill. So I immediately call my buddy, Brandon Wilson, the timer. He's a course measurer, Class A, USATF official, and he was my timer. I said, we got to get going on this. So we added timing points at the turnarounds, and we made sure everything was in place. So if she did set a world record, we recovered. The last thing you want to do is somebody said run a world record, then go, oh, whoops, I screwed up. You don't want that. We already had all our ducks in a row as far as sanctioning certification beforehand. In fact, that's probably why I don't think she would have ever checked with us in the first place if she wouldn't seen that we already had that taken care of. And then you have to have WADA there, the World Anti-Doping Association, to take drug tests right after that as well. So to see her say, I'm going to set the world record was very exciting. The record at the time was 13:43. The local TV got behind it some, and we were taking video and sending it to them and posting it, and everybody was going nuts because she's flying. she'd never finished 100 miles before. So this was not like, oh, I do this all the time. But she was like her hair was on fire from the start. And we were like, oh my God, is she going to burn out? And when she came through, again, the record was 13:43. She came through 50 miles at 6:07. So
Dang.
we're like, whoa. And Connor didn't seem too worried about it. He wanted to know where a good Mexican place was because she might have some tacos. Okay, that's awesome. And she came back through at 76 miles, still way ahead of pace. In fact, Harvey Lewis had run the 50 miles that year, and he was going to leave to go somewhere else, and he kept paying attention. Oh God, he turned around and drove an hour back so he could watch it. By the time she came in, it was just, unless she falls down and kills herself, then she's going to destroy the record. So we sent a guy down, I don't know, a few hundred yards onto the trail to call us when you see her. So he was all nervous, and he says, there's somebody coming really fast with the light, because it's dark by then. And then, as you know, you have to have manual stopwatches for a world record. They don't just go by electronic, and you have to have 6 of them that you start at the same time, and you stop 3 when the first runner comes in. You stop the other 3 when the first of the opposite sex comes in. So the timer was there with the stop, and their hands were shaking because nobody wants to screw this up. There were probably 200 people lining the finish line and just screaming and hollering. It was so awesome to see her come run in, and she was so happy because she got what she came for, and so gracious. I mean, just the nicest lady ever. And does a little bow and did a little interview with Harvey. I don't know if you saw that on the website or not, but it was pretty cool. I mean, it's hard to beat that. How are you going to beat a world record? Even though.
And what was her time?
12:42:40. So she was about 63 minutes. And that's still the world record.
It
so
is.
2017 was when that happened. That attracted Zach Bitter.
Yeah,
so I'd met
awesome.
Zach at the Anchorage, Alaska Dome, before, when he was going for the 100-mile record. Then he ran 12:08:36 the very next year, which was only 12 seconds off the fastest time not run on the track. So it was the world's best off-road. Those two, hard to beat.
So you talk about fast.
You're going to run it.
It's fast.
You're going to run it and beat that.
So if you're looking for your first one, it sounds like it's a great one to give it a go on. If you're looking to set your own PR, Tunnel Hill sounds like it. And since there's been 2 world's best set there, then it sounds
just look at the results. Go to Ultra Sign Up, look at the results each year, and see how many people finish sub 24. Almost as many finish sub 24 as finish under 30. So we also give a sub 20 award as well, because there's so many of those. And this year I'm thinking about doing sub 16.
Oh wow,
it's just nuts. And we in 2021 we had 3 runners go under 13 hours. It was the first time that's happened in an event in 25 years, and only the second time ever. So but again, you don't have to be the world's fastest runner.
Right.
Just come and run it. It's fun. It's beautiful. We're going to take care of you. And if there's something in particular you want, bring it. Then you can put drop bags at 3 different locations. So there's plenty of places to get your stuff, what you can't carry with you. But we're going to try to have everything that you want.
So for those runners who are not the elite runners that are going to be signing up for it, I know that registration is still open even for this year. Are there any qualifications for registration, like that you have to run a 50 miler or something like that beforehand?
No, it's a safe course. If this was Western States or a course that was in the woods and there was risk, kind of like Frozen Head State Park is, you got to have you can practically run without a light because it's smooth. The Tunnel Hill people go out and blow the course with big leaf blowers a couple of times right before the race. to try to get rid of anything that might slow them down. Even leaves will slow you down. So we try to blow those off, get rid of any like limbs and such. It's very shaded too. So if it was a sunny day, then you've got the shade going for you as well. So yeah, I think it's the place to run.
Oh, it sounds great. And so for everybody listening, Tunnel Hill, the race this year is on November 11th through the 12th. Registration is open. It's on Ultra Sign Up. We'll also link. You got DurbanRaceManagement.com where you've got this race as well as other races that you put on, like you mentioned, Friends with Laz. So, there's some good stuff on there. Go check it out. But quick summary, it's a safe course. It's a fast course. There's not much elevation. You get to run through a big tunnel. It's very crew friendly, and there's a lot of good aid stations. So anything I missed?
No, that's about it. It was good.
The tunnel.
Yeah.
What's the tunnel like?
Oh, Tell us about the
tunnel's
tunnel.
not lighted. The tunnel's not lighted. So you come to the tunnel and you see the light at the other end. And you think, okay, I'm watching the light. About a third of the way through, you can't see. It's dark. But you can see the light at the other end. So you just run along knowing that trains have gone through there. You'll make it, you'll fit through. And when you get about 2/3 of the way through, now you can see again. But it's flat out awesome.
Just run towards the light.
That's two football fields long.
Yeah.
It's long.
And so if you're the crew people, go to Tunnel Hill Aid Station. It's only less than a quarter of a mile. Walk through the tunnel. It's fine. Got to see it.
I want to crew you there. I will hide in the tunnel. When you
Ooh, that does not sound fun at all.
You should do this race on Halloween.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what actually on Halloween, you just need to leave the stuff from Halloween out there,
right?
And get people in the tunnel.
Awesome.
But Steve, look, man, we appreciate your time. For everybody listening, if you're part of the Ultra Running Guys family, thank you so much. We appreciate you. If you're new and you tuned in to check out Tunnel Hill 100, thanks for stopping. We hope you found this valuable. Like I said, we'll link all the stuff, but Steve, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. And if anybody contacts me and mention they saw you guys, I'll give them a special deal.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right. Tell them the Ultra Running Guys sent you.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I want a special deal.
For free.
Stop it.
See what you can do.
All right, Steve, don't quite hang up yet, but for everybody else, we'll talk soon.
Cut. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the content. If you haven't already, don't forget to check out our full lineup of podcast episodes that are designed to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey.
So be sure to check the links below, and you can visit our website at theultrarunningguys.com or download your episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, when in doubt, just show up.
See ya.